Welcome back, my name is LastKnownMeal and today we're going to talk about Netflix The Witcher. So we finally have some interviews about the show and this is going to be somewhat of a two-part video. In this video we're going to talk about the interview done by Henry Cavill where he talks about the show, where he talks about Geralt of Rivia, about the character itself. And in the second video we're going to focus on Anya Chalotra and Freya Allan, who are portraying Yennefer and Ciri. So that's going to be the second video. Now, the interview was given to Hobby Consolos. I'm going to leave the original link, which is in Spanish, for the interview, and I'm going to give you the translated version, which is currently on Redanian Intelligence. I swear to God, these people are doing God's work with all the news they're gathering and actually posting on their website. It's amazing. But anyway, let's go through the questions and see what can we actually learn from this. Now, what we do know from the start is that Henry Cavill is a huge fan of the video games, of the Witcher video games. He's also a huge fan of the Witcher books, of the Witcher saga. And a long time ago when he was talking about the casting, he was actually sending messages every now and then to the showrunner to ask, when is the casting, when is it going to happen, when can I arrive, and to actually have a high-tier actor who is willing to participate in a project, who actually has knowledge about the video games, who has knowledge about the books, is truly amazing. Now, I know a lot of people didn't actually like him to be Geralt of Rivia in the first place, but if there is someone who plays video games and actually could portray Geralt of Rivia in a good manner, it's going to be him. There are also other amazing actors that could fit this role, but this is his adaptation and let's see what he has to offer. So let's start from the top. Discussing getting into Geralt of Rivia character, Henry said, "I really enjoy playing these kind of games and reading these kind of books in my spare time. I don't consider it a job. For me, it's more like an extraordinary opportunity to live my childhood and adult life fantasies. That's why it's one of those things that I enjoy and don't find it difficult to get into the character," which is amazing. Actors sometimes have a really hard time going into the character. To actually go into any character, you have to know as much as you can about him. Everything from his habits, how he moves, how he picks up stuff, how he looks, how he talks, everything that makes a character is all of that, all these elements. And to get into a character is sometimes really difficult, so I'm glad that Henry doesn't have any problems to get into the character of Geralt of Rivia, and we're going to see how he did it when the Season 1 comes out. Now, as far as his favorite games go, Henry's answer was swift. The Witcher 3, but I love Total War games as well. Every time I get into one of them, I keep playing until I die for good. For some reason, there is something about the nature of the strategy of the Battlefront that I love. And it's a little bit, building an empire, which is fun. And I may not play for months and months, but as soon as I finish playing a match, I can finish the game again and see everything. And it feels like a completely new experience. Total War games are probably my favorite because I can play them wherever and whenever I want and start over. And it's still a fresh experience, which is a dream come true. Now, this is something a gamer would definitely say. Henry also offered a reminder that the show is based on the books. Now, this is something I was waiting for, his explanation. My version of Geralt is true to the books, and I'm sure it's to the game too, because I'm a big fan of the game. But to put it simply, Geralt's heart is that of a traveling knight, but his exterior is jaded because of the world, and his vision is obscured by the world and everyone else. At first he may look badass, but when you really look, it's the other way around. But what makes him interesting, deep down he's a knight, he's one of those fan heroes, but from the outside he looks the other way around. And that's also one of the things I love about his character, because even though he is that thing, he is also different on the outside, which is extraordinary. And yes, this is definitely one of the most important things to understand, because Geralt in general as a Witcher is really kind. If you look any other Witchers, in the books, in the video games, except, of course, for the School of the Wolf, they're kind of an assholes, not gonna lie. Because they are witchers, they are not knights. They get the job done. And because witchers go through mutations, they're either full of scars because of the fights they were in, and they have cat-like eyes, so they look like mutants and people don't like it. We know that generally humans don't like witchers or non-humans and the other way around. It's crazy. There was a whole war about it. But still, to portray Geralt of Rivia, as you should, you have to keep those things connected. To look like a badass, to act like a badass, to fight like a badass, but to also have this kind heart that Geralt of Rivia has, because at the end, he does. He wants to help everyone, and he wants to protect people from monsters. But if you're a bad person, Geralt is going to cut you down. That's who he is, and that's what makes him this truly an amazing, somewhat of a... It's not even an anti-hero in this way. It is a hero, but a hero that is rough on the outside. Now, next question. What about Geralt excites you as Henry Cavill? How do you connect with a character personally? Connect with a character personally? I think there is a little of the person I want to be too. It's what I want to be. I want to be this person. I also have similar doubts that Geralt has about the world, and I see something new in Geralt's approach. It's a hard question to answer, and very personal. I think a part of me probably resonates with him because there is definitely a part of his personality that gets in the way of mine. Now, generally, if you have a character that kinda goes along with the actor and his views of the world, it's going to be a lot easier for that person to actually go into the character and play him. And because Geralt of Rivia and Henry Cavill somewhat have this connection in a way on how they perceive the world itself and, you know, everyone around us, it's also a huge plus. What it has been like working on a Netflix production now that we live in the golden age of television shows. That is true, actually, we do live in the golden age of television shows. More and more, you have streaming services, you have big channels that are producing amazing shows, and that is something that I honestly did not expect to happen as I was growing up. I didn't see that the popularity of the television shows is going to grow, because at some point, films and movies were taking over. You didn't have a good show on television at some point, but now that you have so many amazing series that were produced in the past and even today, it is actually a golden age of television. It's great, I go back to these kind of things, the ones I live and breathe in my free time, because he obviously watches series a lot. And then I can go to work and have it as my daily job. That is actually amazing. This kind of thing I would do in my free time seems like an extraordinary opportunity, especially at this time when television is considered a major form of legitimate storytelling. He is true about this. And it's an alternative where I can really tell Geralt's story a long way. And I hope for many years it keeps being a dream come true. So yes, Henry Cavill does want this show to continue, and it all depends from popularity. Keep in mind, the trailer for the show, I think, passed over 20 million views on YouTube. So when you have something like that, the budget of the show, and because the show is going to be popular, the budget of the show is going to go up a lot, which is generally good for the later seasons because they will have more resources to actually draw from and give us, you know, better content, more content, and, you know, pack the show with, you know, higher production value. Next question, what was the hardest scene to shoot so far? Now, this was a smart question. Now, he was probably expecting somewhat of a spoiler, but Henry played it well. Unfortunately, I can't name any specific scenes from The Witcher because I want to keep the story as fresh as possible for our viewers. But there were some long sequences that filming took us weeks, which had a wide variety of shooting moments, long dialogues, along with exceptional action moments. I can't say which one was the hardest, but the fact is that some were very long. It was barely sleeping, and that definitely has an effect at the end of 2 weeks. So yes, we can expect a lot of action, what we've seen from the teaser trailer. There is going to be a lot of things I don't want to spoil to you, but there is going to be a major fighting scene in the first season that I'm really excited about, so I don't want to spoil that as well. But I do understand that it takes a lot of time to record these things, especially when there is action, but because before action sequences you have to rehearse every single moment, especially because it's sword fighting, and rehearsing that takes weeks. Now, the good thing is Henry Cavill is someone who is physically capable of doing that. He is a very fit and healthy person, a very fit and healthy actor. So that kind of helps him to do those action scenes better, and that's something I'm definitely looking forward to. And the fighting choreographer they have, I forgot his name, but he was working on Game of Thrones. He was also the Night King. He played the Night King, so having him on board on The Witcher is definitely good for the series. Now, the show is entertainment on one hand, and on the other hand, there are many political elements in it. How would you describe the show to someone unfamiliar with the books or the game adaptation? Very good question. I would say it is difficult to describe it in a highly political world. You have the opportunity to follow a character who is refreshingly apolitical and also at the same time controversial and politically correct according to his views, as he would describe it himself. Yes, Witchers are generally apolitical. They don't meddle in the affairs of kings and queens, they just get the job done. So if there is a monster or a threat, you hire a Witcher, he's going to do a job, and that's it. He doesn't care about if you're a prince or a king. If you have the money, you are good. And that is somewhat that Witchers were supposed to work in this way. Now, obviously, Geralt is going to find himself in a very difficult position for that, because he's going to be involved in a very deep political story. And I'm not comparing it to today's politics. That doesn't mean when I say a political show that it's going to try and be this or that, but the books are very political. They deal with many issues like racism between humans and non-humans, you know, normal kings and queens problems and their backstabbing. It's a normal thing that happens in the world of The Witcher, so I definitely don't mind to see it in the series, because that's something Andrzej Sapkowski did write about. How will you reflect Geralt alienation in a show with so much action? The wonderful thing is that you don't expect him to be a hero. He probably shouldn't be a hero because how he was treated. But he gives wonderful examples, being a hero after all, in his actions and reactions. Yes, Geralt of Rivia is a very sarcastic character. He is very ironical. He doesn't care that much. You kind of saw that in the video games. If you read the books, you kind of saw that in the books as well. And that's something I want Henry to portray. That Geralt is not someone who is always smiling, who's always this or that, but Geralt can be really funny in his tone, how he says things. And yes, Witchers are being mocked every single day, every time they walk into a town, when they walk into a huge city. People watch them with resentment because he is a monster for them. He is a mutant. And even though he kind of protects them in the way, people don't like him. So he's not going to be treated as a hero. He's not going to appear as a hero in the series, because he doesn't appear as a hero in the books or video games as well, in that way. So it's going to be a very interesting thing to see, and hopefully Henry does it right. Now, this next question is a bit dumb and could have been easily avoided because it doesn't make any sense. On physical preparation for action, should we prepare for something like John Wick but with magic? Yeah, wasn't a good question. I have many sources of inspiration that were absolutely extraordinary and exist on our own ground, but I would not like to compare or contrast it to anything. What we're doing here is creating some fantastic themes with sword action. Physical breeding is very important to me, as you all know, and I'm doing my best to ensure that it is perfectly representative of what The Witcher is capable of doing. Let's move on to the next one. This question wasn't that good. Now we're going to move to the next question because this one not that good. When we see you, we also think of superheroes. What is it like to play Geralt compared to Superman? They are very different characters, but both are heroes. I think Geralt has the opportunity to add a little bit more fun because of his nature of being an ancient hero, apolitical, controversial in his views, and nonconformist. So it can be so much more fun. But even so, both are heroes. I think Geralt is Superman at heart, but he's something else on the outside, so it provides another layer for the audience to break and for other characters to reach him. This is very well said. This is said by someone who definitely does play video games, I mean The Witcher video games, who does know the lore, who does know the characters, who does know the story, and that is definitely good. So I want to see this aspect in the show, because this tone of the show is going to buy the fans that are also having a lot of, how would I say, a lot of fear for the show that it might fail, and I do understand them. It's a very difficult thing to adapt something like The Witcher, because video games in their own rights did a lot of stuff for the franchise, for the brand of The Witcher. And no, they are not adapting the video games, they're adapting the books, and people should know that. But there are elements from the books that need to be in the show, so that's also important to see. Then he talks about the diet and physical preparation. Is there a special Witcher diet? There is something special, but I wouldn't say it's special for Witchers. I mean, there is a diet that my trainer has for me, so maybe it's a Henry's diet. And yes, I'm focused on training right now, making sure I'm thin as possible for The Witcher. Thin? And also making sure I have enough muscle mass to actually look like someone who has gone through the same limitations Geralt has been through, and at the same time through so much training. Maybe just a little tiny bit you overdid with the muscles, with the bicep. I mean it's cool, but it's kind of too bulky for Geralt, in my opinion. Now in the continuation he says this: a real sword is extraordinarily difficult to use for an extended period because of its weight. And if you can imagine that Geralt has been doing this since he was a boy, then you really have to get into his skin. And this is something important to play. I want the character to look both incredibly thin and at the same time very dangerous. And so the diet and the training program reflects this. Yes, that is important, but let's not go too bulky, because there are some physical limitations that you cannot, like some of the muscle mass bodybuilders build today, it wasn't really possible in the, let's say, ancient times, in the Middle Ages, because they don't have access to the equipment we have today. So yes, people then were strong, they were big, but there was a kind of a different definition to their bodies. So in a way, yes, this Geralt is a bit too bulky. Hopefully it doesn't, flash too much in the show, so we'll see. And the last question: how important are female characters to Geralt, and how would you describe them in your character development? Oh yeah, Geralt likes women, I can tell you that much. I think that for Geralt no one is important, or it is what he likes to think anyway. Unconsciously or subconsciously, everyone becomes important to him. He has an extraordinary connection with his mother, which is a lost relationship. Okay, this is cool. But somehow it's incredibly strong and deeply rooted in his psyche. And I'm not saying he has some kind of mom issues or anything like that. But having it when it comes to female characters in the story obviously has a huge effect on his life. Anyone who has read the books, who has played the games, knows that there are many important female characters. I will not go into details, but they are great characters who are women and who are great guides in Geralt's life, with an incredibly powerful influence on him. In some way, he is right about this, and it's going to be interesting to see the bonding he has with Ciri, because this connection has to be special. Because in the books, in the video games, the connection Ciri and Geralt have, it's magical, it's stunning, it's amazing, and that is something I want this translated into the show. Also, I want to see how him and Yennefer kinda operate, because Yennefer as a character, Yennefer is really like dark. She doesn't care all that much about you, but it's going to be interesting to see how she changes around Geralt of Rivia, because Geralt is going to be someone special in her life. So that's also one aspect of the show I want to see. Now, the interview itself was well done. We learned more about, Henry's perception of the show and, of course, of Geralt of Rivia. In the next video, we're going to talk about the Anya Chalotra and Freya Allan, so that is coming. Don't forget to subscribe for that. Also, tell me down below what you think about this. All the links are down below. Check them out. You can read it yourself, and that's it. Also, visit us on Twitter and Discord. We talk a lot around the show there, so don't forget to join. Links down below. And as always, stay classy, everyone, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.